Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Michael's Community Classroom. We are so happy to have you here for another one of our Monday evening Let's Paint Live and Let's Paint with Plaid. We have a great painting tonight that Jessie will be leading. And for those of you who are regular participants here in the classroom, you know Jessie. She's one of our longtime teachers here in the classroom. So we're super excited. We're painting on glass tonight, which is a little bit different, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So as Jimena mentioned, the class is being recorded. So if you find that the pace ends up being a little bit fast for you and you decide that you would like to just stop and watch, you can always go back and watch at your own pace, and you can pause and paint along at your own pace. So that's always a great option. But if you do want to paint along tonight, then of course Jessie will do her best to give everyone time to keep up and paint along. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Jessie.
Thanks, John. So like John said, my name is Jessie Jennings, and I'm a content creator here at Plaid. So if it's your first class with me, welcome. I'm so happy you're here, and if not, welcome back. I'm really glad you decided to come and paint with me again. So like John said, we're going to be painting on glass tonight. So this is Blue Palm Dreams. So it's a really fun one. It's kind of a little bit 4th of July-y, but it's also just floral. So it's great for any time of year. So I'm really excited to show you. I know we've painted on glass before in the Michael's Community Classroom paint night. So I'm super excited to show you guys how I did this one. So I'll let you know what supplies you will need to get started. So of course I have my glass surface. So you can see the one I have here is just a little bit smaller, but it's really going to be the exact same thing, just slightly scaled down. So any size glass frame you have is perfectly fine for this painting. If it's square or rectangular, it really doesn't matter. The important part of this surface is that I have 2 panes of glass. So I'm going to be very careful. So you want to make sure you remove your 2 panes. I've got one here and one here. So carefully remove your 2 panes of glass from your frame. And I have them laid down in front of me stacked. I have a piece of white paper here behind it, just so you guys can see my painting better as I go, so it doesn't blend in with this wood table. So to prep your glass, you guys are going to want to wipe it down with some isopropyl alcohol or some warm soap and water. And the reason we do that is because it just removes any oil or debris from the surface, and it helps our paint to stick way better. So it'll just last much longer and it'll be way more durable. Okay, so I've got my glass here. I have my wax coated palette paper here, which is just, like I said, it's just some nice shiny paper to mix my paint on. I've got some paper towels and water basin for cleaning my brushes. And then the brushes I have here tonight is this nice Craft Smart set that we use most of the time. So the sizes I have are a 1-inch flat. So any like big-ish flat brush is great. I have a more medium-sized flat. This is a 1/2 inch. I've got my, oh, this one doesn't have a thing on it. A 1/4 inch flat is what it looks like, or maybe a number 10 flat or something like that. And then I also have my number 10 round brush. So this nice larger round brush, we'll be using this a lot in our painting. So make sure to grab just anything that looks like that. It doesn't need to be exact. If you guys have a different brush pack at home, you'll be able to make do. It's not that big of a deal. And then as always, I've got my hair dryer here because we'll be doing lots of layering with our paints. So you want to make sure to have a hair dryer just to kind of, again, we try to keep it in an hour, like John said. I really try to keep it at a good pace so everyone can keep up, but we do try to be respectful of Michael's hour. So we try to do the painting in an hour. So that's why we always have our hair dryer to kind of keep things going. And then tonight, we usually use our FolkArt acrylic paints, but since we're painting on glass tonight, we're going to be using our FolkArt multi-surface paints. So if you've never used these before, I really recommend them, especially if you're going to be using a non-porous surface like glass or ceramic. It actually works great on fabric too. So anything that's not really your traditional painting surface, like wood or canvas or anything like that, I would recommend using the multi-surface on. And it's just got really great coverage and it's super duper durable. So the acrylic paint was designed for painting on canvases, and so it's really works well for that. But this is going to have great coverage on slick surfaces, and it's going to be really hard to scratch off later. You can see I'm rubbing my fingernail on it, and it is really on there. So that's why I recommend the multi-surface. So the colors I have are pure orange. So any orange is great for this, just a nice regular orange color. I've got fire coral. I've got baby pink. We have some cobalt blue. I've got look at me blue, which is a really pretty, like bright medium blue color. I have Sky Mist, which is just a very pretty pale blue. You can see it almost looks white, but it is blue. And then last but not least, I've just got my Wicker white. So just whatever white you have is fine. Okay. So any questions so far, John?
No, I don't think so. If you are painting on canvas, for this evening, then Jesse will tell you, where the differences are, or if you only have one pane of glass or something like that, then she can, just show you how to do it. And you may want to just practice your painting on canvas this evening and then go back and try it another time on glass. It'll be totally up to you. But when the time comes, she'll explain to you the differences. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So if you guys weren't able to get a glass frame like this for painting, you just have a canvas at home, that is totally fine. You can absolutely paint this on there. You'll just be layering your painting a little bit differently than we'll be doing with the glass. So of course, you can kind of see here, you'll do your blue background first, and then you'll paint the flowers on top. So as a matter of fact, if you guys do have a canvas at home, I would go ahead and I would grab the cobalt blue and a big brush and just start painting just big brush strokes to cover the middle section of the canvas. And we, since we're painting on glass, we're gonna do that as our second step. So I just want you guys to be able to get that nice, pretty blue background. So I'll give you guys a second to do that real quick. But if you're painting on glass, we're not doing that quite yet. So that is the only thing that's gonna be different. Other than that, you'll be able to layer it forward with the rest of us. So like I said, I've got my 2 pieces of glass. I'm going to refer to my top piece as my first piece, and then my bottom piece as my second piece. So my first piece and my second piece, we may be painting on the front or the back of either piece, but this will be my first and this will be my second. So when I refer to that, just so you guys know which pane of glass I'm talking about and which one I'm painting on at that particular time. So that being said, I'm going to take my first piece of glass and I'm going to set it aside because we're going to paint on our second piece of glass to start. So again, the reason that I'm painting on glass here is you get a really beautiful layered effect. So we've got, we're painting on the back of the second piece and then on the front of it, and then again on the top pane of glass. And so you have lots of, it may be hard to see on camera, but lots of beautiful dimension going on. Of course, you can see the glass around it, so that really helps with that. But you can see the glass between the layers of paint too, which is just really, really beautiful. So that's the reason we're using glass tonight. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get started. The first thing we're going to do, actually, I wonder if I should slide this out to make it easier for you guys to see. I might do that actually. I'm gonna slide this out so you can see the layers as I go to make it hopefully a little more clear for you. And this will give all those canvas painters a little bit more time. You're painting your canvas to look basically like this. You see the blue right here. I'm just gonna slide this out real quick. I've got these little like buffers in it that help hold the glass in place. They're just little pieces of foam. So I'm gonna pull these guys out. Okay. Alrighty. Just gonna plop it down there. Okay, so you can see my 2 panes of glass here. They might be stuck together. They might have dried together. Nope. Okay, so I've got my 2 panes of glass here. Now you can really see how that was layered and what we'll be doing tonight. And I will show you, of course, how we're going to be doing that. We're going to start by painting these flowers here. So this is my first pane of glass. I'm removing that, setting it aside. And this is our second pane of glass. We're going to start by painting these really pretty blue flowers. Okay, so to start, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some of my Look at Me blue, which is the medium of the 3 blues we have here tonight. And I'm going to put a little bit of that onto my palette paper. And I'm also going to grab some of my Sky Mist, which is the lightest of our 3 blues. I'm going to put a little bit of that onto my palette paper as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my number 10 round brush, which is the larger of our, it's like a large round brush. This is the biggest one that I usually use in my painting. My scrunchie. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of my Look at Me blue to start. So whenever I'm loading my brush, you don't want to put a ton of paint on your brush. I kind of have it just halfway down the bristle, as you can see. You don't want to end up getting paint in the ferrule, which is the metal part of your brush. That's how you keep your brushes lasting nice and long. So I've got it about halfway down the bristles of my brush. And I'm going to mark the centers of each of my flowers, just so I can get an idea of my composition and how they're kind of going to be placed to make sure that I'm spacing them evenly as I paint. So I'm going to start by putting one up towards the top right. So put a little dot there just so I know where the center is. And then I'll do another one a little bit lower than that to the left. And then another one here. And then I'll put a couple more down here. Okay, so you can see here how I have my little flowers laid out. And then next we're going to start painting our petals. So I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to start at the center. And you can see I've got this nice sharp tip on my brush. If you press down on your brush, it's going to spread those bristles, and you're not going to have as sharp of a tip. What you can kind of do to get that tip is to kind of just twirl your brush on your palette paper, and you get that nice tip again. So that's what we really want to see right now for this part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to pull up, and I'm not going to put very much pressure on it. And then when I get to the center of my petal, I'm going to press down, I'm going to pull up again. And what we're going to get is that nice, it's like a thinner line and then thicker and then thinner. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to paint it and then push down and then pull up again. You see how you get that nice little, it's almost like a palm leaf or something. It reminds you of like palm trees. But again, it could be fireworks. It's kind of up to you guys, up to your imagination. And do the same thing on the left side. So press down and then pull up. And then I'm going to go down and do a couple in the middle, press and then pull up. It's kind of like if you ever painted fireworks when you were little, this is how I painted them. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that for each of my my little dots here that we've placed. And it's okay if they overlap. I'm going to do about 4 to 5 of these little petals in each one before we switch colors. So I'm going to do the same thing here.
So Jesse, while you're doing that, there was a question that came in. If someone has some FolkArt enamels, can they use those interchangeably with the multi-surface? And can you even blend those formulas together?
Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely use FolkArt enamels. So as you know, I'm sure FolkArt enamels were designed for painting on glass. So they work really well in conjunction with our multi-surface paints. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely, you can use those together.
Okay, good.
So I'm just continuing to do my petals.
So on the canvas, Jesse, could you remind folks which color that blue was that they're doing on their background? That was
we're doing Look at Me Blue right now.
It looks like it's sort of like a middle, like a kind of a bright royal blue, right?
Yeah, it is. So you can see here, you just want to make sure it's a little bit different. We were going to be using this Cobalt blue, which is like a bright primary, just like the name Cobalt blue for the background. So you just want to make sure whatever this blues you're using is different than the one you're going to use for the background so that they stand apart from each other. But as long as those two are different, it really doesn't matter which blue you decide to use.
Great.
So again, I'm just starting, I'm not pushing down very hard, and then I'm pushing and then pulling up, not pushing down, pushing, pulling up. And we're kind of playing with our pressure tonight, which I love to do. It's a really great way to get different lines really quickly with your brush strokes. So again, I'm just gonna do 4 to 5, and then I'm gonna go back in with some of my sky mist and add a little bit more color. So I'm gonna go back with my sky mist now, and I'm not going to clean my brush off. I'm going to keep this blue on it. I haven't washed the Look at Me Blue off yet. I'm going to pick up some sky mist, and I'm going to go back over a couple of the strokes and kind of blend them. So they're still going to be wet on your glass. So I'm not going to go over every stroke, but I'm just going to go over a couple of them. You can see how it adds a little bit of detail, a little bit of variety to those. So it's not just all one color, almost a little bit of like dimension too. Just gonna go back over a couple of them, and then you can make new strokes with the sky mist as well. So do a new stroke there with just sky mist. You can see there, it's a little hard to see on the white, but once we add that blue to the back, it'll really pop. So I'm just doing a few more strokes with my sky mist. And you can see the great coverage that we're getting on our glass here. That's why I love the multi-surface paints, is because the acrylics are excellent, and they were designed for use on canvas and more traditional painting, wood, crafts, things like that. but these were designed for slick surfaces and fabric and things like that. So they just really, really grip onto whatever you're painting and you get awesome coverage. Okay. So maybe I'll do one more here. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna leave that for now. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clean my brush off because we're gonna switch colors before we move on to a different layer. So I'm just gonna rinse my brush off, make sure I get all the water out. I always wanna make sure all the water's out of my brush when I'm painting. And I'm gonna grab some of my fire coral. So this really pretty coral color and put it on my palette. And I'm also going to grab some of my pure orange. And before you guys ask, if you don't have fire coral, you can go ahead and mix together your pure orange and your baby pink, and you'll get something like this really pretty fire coral here. So mix your orange and your pink together to get coral if you don't have that at home. Okay, so again, on my palette, I've got my fire coral and my pure orange. And we're going to start painting some of these little flower buds that you see here. So you can see how super easy these are going to be to paint. They're just even easier than the brush strokes we just did. They're just little like smushes. I know I've used some of the best terminology, and it's very professional painting terminology that I like to use in these Michael's classes. But that's the best way I can describe what we're about to do with our brush. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of the fire coral. And again, I'm loading my brush the same way we did before, just about halfway down the bristles. And I'm going to do these in little bunches here and there. So I'm going to do a little bunch up here, I think. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to press down. I'm not moving my brush at all. I'm at about a little bit of an angle, about a 45-degree angle. And I'm just pressing down and picking it right back up. I'm not dragging it or anything like that. I'm truly just using it almost like a stamp, pressing down, applying pressure to get that nice little shape there. And I'm going to do a little bundle of them. It's okay if they overlap. And I'm gonna do a little bundle up there, and then I'll do a few in between my flowers here. This is gonna add a really nice variety of color to our painting. I love the way these oranges and blues look together. I'm just adding a few here and there. And again, I'm doing them in little bundles. I'll do some down here too. And you can see I'm just pushing down, nothing more to it than that. Don't overthink it. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to clean my brush off yet. Just like we did with the blue, I'm going to leave the pink on my brush. I'm going to pick up some orange. And I'm going to go back over some of my brush strokes, just like we did with the skyline. I'm going to go back over some of these pink dots that we just made with orange. Same exact motion. I'm just adding orange onto it. And you can see how it kind of blends the pink and the orange together. You get a really subtle variation in your colors. Looks like you use lots of colors when you really only used 2. I'm just pressing it over some of these dots that we've already made. You can add a couple new dots here and there too with just the orange if you like. Really similar to what we just did with our blues, just a different brush stroke. Okay. So that is it for this side of this pane of glass. I'm going to give everybody just a minute to catch up before we start drying our painting and move on to the next layer. Everybody doing okay out there, John?
I think everyone's doing okay. Yep. Need just a minute to catch up, probably.
Yeah, I'll make sure you guys all have just a second to catch up. It's a really fun painting. I'm super excited to be painting it again. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just start drying my painting. So everybody, you still have another minute to catch up. If you're ahead and you're on track with me, go ahead and start drying your painting. Whenever I dry my painting to the hairdryer, I like to start with on the hot setting, and then I kind of switch over to cool, and I'll go back and forth. I like to use the highest air setting because that just dries it faster, but I don't want my paint to get too hot. So I like to switch back between hot and cool. Okay, so my painting feels dry. You can see I was kind of gently tapping it to make sure it was drying as I was going, and it feels good now. I'm touching it and no paint is coming up. So, so that said, this is still the second pane of glass, guys. We are going to hang on to this one, and we are very carefully, be careful, guys, because the glass can be sharp on the edge. We're going to carefully lift it up and flip it over. So we are turning it, flipping it over. So it looks, just make sure you guys all heard that, because it looks like the same side, because you can't really tell that much because of course it's glass. So just so you guys know, we took our painting, our pane of glass, and we flipped it over. We're now going to paint on the back of this pane of glass. So I'm going to flip over this one too to show you guys the example. And this is where we're going to paint all this beautiful blue that you're going to see coming through your glass when you're finished with your painting. So I'm going to grab some of my Cobalt blue. So this is the darkest of the three blues that we're using tonight. And I'm going to put some of this on my palette. Now I'm going to grab my 1-inch flat brush, and I'm going to pick up some of my Cobalt, and I'm going to start, you can see how they're kind of just random brush strokes, but I'm going to focus on the areas where I have my painting. So we're going to avoid the areas of big open areas of glass. We should make sure we get all of the brush strokes we did covered, and that's what's going to kind of give this fun, like scribbled look when we're done. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to make sure I'm covering up, I'm doing just nice broad brush strokes, covering up the areas that are painted. So everywhere we have that color on the front, we're going to have this beautiful cobalt blue shining through. And the best way I can recommend to not get brush strokes and to get full coverage is not to try to paint back and forth. Because when you're painting on a non-porous surface like this, when you paint your first stroke, if you paint back over it, your paintbrush is going to want to pick the brush back up. So I recommend doing your brush stroke and then leaving it and painting around it. Try not to paint back over the areas you've already painted. And that's where you're going to get that nice full coverage on glass.
Just so everyone understands, because there was a question, so you definitely want to be painting on the other side, right? So you've made your painting on one side, you dried it, and then flip it over, and you're painting essentially behind it on the glass. And for those of you who were using the canvas, that's why Jessie said do that first, so that you would then paint on top of it.
Exactly. So we always get a lot of people panicking at this point saying, why is she painting over it? She just painted that. So like John said, we flipped it over. Don't forget. That's why I wanted to make sure everybody was paying attention. We flipped our canvas, or I'm sorry, we flipped our glass over. And like John said, if you were painting on a canvas, that's why I told you guys to go ahead and do this blue part first. That's the only part that's kind of hard to do in the same order as us. So you can see super simple here. I did not overthink it. I just did big, bold brush strokes, and I just focused on covering all of the areas where I had painted on the front. So you can see here, nothing crazy. If you have a little bit of, transparency going on, that is okay. We're gonna be painting so much on the front, so many layers and details, you won't be able to tell when your painting is finished. So give everybody just a second to catch up, because I know I did that quick, but I hope you guys do it quick too. I don't want you to overthink it. Don't start trying to spread it and smooth it out. Just nice, big, bold brush strokes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and dry mine in just a second. Okay, so for this one, since I have a lot of paint down, I'm going to avoid going on the hot setting because I don't want my paint to crack. So there's always a chance if you dry acrylic paint too quickly, it's going to want to crack. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick with my cool setting and just lightly dry this until it's nice and dry. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. This part's going to take a little bit longer to dry. Like I said, we've got a lot more paint on here than we did on the front side with just those brush strokes. So just another minute or two while we dry this. I just want to make sure it's nice and dry. So when I go to flip my glass back over, I don't smear it all around. So just another minute or two. Okay, so it's pretty dry, guys. So you just want to make sure yours is really, really dry. So again, I'm going to carefully flip my glass over and place it down. So now we are back to where we were painting on before. So got the blue side down, we've got our flower side up. This is still our first pane of glass. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab onto that second pane of glass, the one that we put aside in the beginning. This is my first pane of glass. This was my second piece. This is my first piece of glass. And I'm going to lay this on top of my glass that we just painted. And it's important to make sure that it is aligned correctly, because when you go to put it in your frame, it is going to line back up. And if you have it shifted while you're painting, your painting might be a little bit shifted, which isn't the end of the world, but just try your best to make sure that it's nice and lined up right now. So just as a reminder, guys, I've got my blank piece of glass back on top of our painted piece. So make sure you do too. I'm gonna go ahead and and if you are painting on a canvas, you're good. Just wait till the next step. I'm gonna flip this back over. This is our example piece. And I'm gonna grab my second piece of glass for this one and lay it back over. So you can see here, this is what we're gonna be painting next, right on top of the one we just did. Okay, so now we're going to add even more layers. So you can see this one looks much darker than our example piece in the class listing, and that's because we added a lot of brightness to this top piece of glass. So that's what we're going to go ahead and we're going to start doing now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to my round brush that we've been using. So my number 10 round brush, this is the same one we used for our other flowers. And I'm going to start by adding some details to the flowers we've already painted. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up, I still have some Sky Mist on my palette. So if you need some more Sky Mist, go ahead and grab some now. But I've already got some, so I'm going to pick up some Sky Mist. And I'm going to start going over some of the petals that we've already painted. And I'm going to start adding new petals here and there just to give it some layering and dimension. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to go over some of the darker ones, just the same way we did before. Hardly any pressure, pressing down, then pulling up. Same as we did on our first pane of glass. And you can even go over the areas where there's already Sky Mist. And you'll see when you do that, that you get a really cool, like layered effect. Even though the color's behind it already, when you paint more on top of it, you can just see the separation in the two pieces of glass, and it's a really beautiful effect. So I'm just going over these, brightening some of the areas up a little. Everybody still doing okay out there, John?
Yeah, I think so. So,
Awesome.
So which color are you using now again? Is that the Sky Mist you're using?
Yeah, we're using Sky and Mist right now. Yep, that's the lightest of the three blues we have.
And if you did, for those who don't have it, I know a couple people have asked, you can lighten up a blue with some white if you know, one of your other blues, and just make a slightly different light blue color. That's fine.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you can see here I added a bunch of sky mist to my petals here. So now I'm going to make a new blue. We're going to add even more blue to this just to give it lots of variation and make it look like we did tons of blending, even though we didn't. So I'm going to pick up, I didn't clean my brush off yet. I'm going to pick up some sky mist, about 1 part sky mist and 1 part look at me blue. And I'm going to mix those together on my palette to get a nice color right in between those two, just to give, again, to give it some more variety. So now I have this another nice light blue, a little bit darker than my sky mist, but definitely lighter than the look at me blue. And I'm just gonna, whenever I mix with my brush, I always wipe the excess paint off before I paint on my painting. I'm gonna add some of this now to the petals we've got painted. I'm gonna add some new petals here and there. You can even go back over the sky mist you just painted and blend it. Just want to add lots of variation to these flowers, or whatever it is that you're imagining them to be. Alrighty, so I think I'm happy with that for now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse my brush off. And give you guys just a minute to catch up with some more of your blue petals.
Hey, Jesse, just while folks are catching up, can you hold the one, maybe the finished one, up real close to the camera for folks to see? Maybe, yeah. There we go.
You guys can see the dimension. You can even see it on camera, just how they all look like they're on different planes. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's totally a fun technique to paint on the, different sides of the glass and multiple pieces of glass. It's really cool.
Yeah. I love doing it. I love doing these glass paintings. They're so much fun. They're so easy to make them just look really cool without a lot of effort. All right, give you guys just another minute to catch up before we start adding some more to our pink flowers. So if you don't already have some fire coral on your palette, go ahead and add some now. So fire coral. And then I'm also going to grab some of my baby pink, which is this nice pale pink color, and put some of that on my palette as well. So just like we did before, I'm going to go and I'm going to start adding another layer of these pretty pink flowers. So I'm going to pick up some fire coral, just like we did before. I'm just going to press the tip of my brush down. I'm not going to move it or pull it. I'm just going to press down. But I'm not going to go directly on top of the ones you've already painted. I'm kind of going to go, I'm definitely going to go in the same bunches. I'm going to go in between and do some layering and overlapping. So it looks like you have these pretty little bushels of flowers, not just little polka dots, but little, bushels, like they're clumped together. So I'm going to start adding some more of these pretty little buds right over the ones that we did before, just overlapping them.
And Jesse, just to be sure, on the supply list for the class, was the frame listed on there so people can see exactly which one that is?
The frame was listed on there. Yeah, it was like a really pretty, it was just like this one, the one that they had at Michael's. It was a 2-paned frame. Yes, it was listed on there. It may not have been exactly like this one, but it definitely will work exactly the same.
Got it. So go ahead, guys, and go back, and if you check the listing for the class where the supply list is, you can see the frame.
Yeah, I listed a really fancy one just because it was really pretty and it was the most similar to the one I used in my original painting. But honestly, guys, any of those floating frames, you can get the really cheap ones at Michael's just a few dollars. As long as it has the 2 panes of glass, it'll work for this. Okay, so I'm just gonna wipe my brush off. I'm not gonna clean it off. I've added some more of these little fire coral buds, and now I'm gonna pick up some of my baby pink, and I'm just gonna go over those and do some blending. So I'm just gonna go right over these ones we just did with our baby pink here and there. I'm not gonna go over all of them, because again, I wanna keep that variety, and you can add some new ones here and there too. And what I love about painting on the wet paint is that I've got some of both colors in my brush now. So when I add a new little bud here and there, I get both of those colors coming through, and I just love the way that looks. Okay. So I think I'm happy with that. So go ahead and add as many or as few as you'd like.
So Jesse, Linda was just saying she has a technique question. She said, when making the original petals of flowers, mine keep coming out with a swoosh at the end, not a point. How can I get a clean point tip at the end of the flowers?
Great question. So when you're painting your flowers here, I'll show you some example ones on my palette here while everybody's catching up. I'll grab some blue since it's the darkest, so you hopefully can see it the best. So you have to really practice a lot when you're doing some of these brush strokes, because you have to play around with the pressure. Just get an idea of what pressure you can put on your brush to get which width of line. So if I put very little pressure on my brush, I've got my big round brush here, I can get a very fine line you can see here. And if I press down, I'm getting a much thicker line with the same brush. So with our swooshes, we're pressing down hardly any, and then we're pressing down a lot, and then we're pressing down hardly any again, and that's how you get that tip. So if you're pressing down a little bit and then pressing down a lot and then picking up, you're gonna get it to look like that, because you didn't end up with that that little bit of pressure at the end, if that makes sense. So we're up and then we're down and then we're up again, as opposed to just up and then down and then picking our brush up. So hopefully
Great.
that helps you. That makes sense?
Makes a lot of sense. But you know what, guys, that's one of those things. If you spend any time, if you go into like the Let's Paint with Plaid group on Facebook and see some of like Andy's tutorials and Lunch and Learns and stuff, he definitely runs you guys through all those exercises on brush strokes. So that's just one of those things that takes practice sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Andy has a series, Andy Jones, and I'm sure you guys know from these Michael's Paint Nights as well, has a series called Skill Builders, where it's basically just all that kind of stuff. He's showing you the tools he likes to use. He's showing you what brush strokes to practice. He's showing you how to mix colors. So there's not necessarily as much, finished paintings going on in that series, but he teaches you all the fundamentals so you can then put together to create some beautiful works of art. So make sure those are called Skill Builders, and you're going to learn a lot of stuff like that, like John said. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to move on to our final flowers that we're going to be painting, which are these really cute little white ones here and there. They're kind of the finishing piece to finish up these florals here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to grab my wicker white. Whatever white you have is fine. I like wicker white. It's kind of warmer. We also have our titanium white, which is like a cooler white. So it just kind of depends on the painting and the look you're going for. And I also have some Sky Mist still in my palette. So if you don't have any Sky Mist left over, go ahead and add that now. And I'm going to pick up some of my, I have my round brush still. I'm going to pick up some of my Sky Mist, and I'm going to put hardly any on my brush. I'll show you how much I have on there. You're going to see I just put a little bit on the tip. Just a little bit on the tip of my brush. And then I'm going to twirl it a little because I really want a sharp line here. So I really want that sharp point that we talked about earlier. I twirled it on my palette to have that nice sharp point because we're going to be painting some really fine lines for a second. So I've got my brush nice and prepped. And so you can see here, we're going to be painting these stems that are going along with all these little white flower buds that we've got in our finished painting. So I'm going to make one right here. So I'm just going to make a little stem right there. And it's just how I was showing you there, how we practice. If you put very little pressure on your brush, you get a really fine line. So I'm going to go up and down nice and vertically. And I'm going to hardly put any pressure. And I'm going to get that nice little line there. And it's hard to see because I didn't Make it a little bit brighter for you. A fine line right there. Do you guys see that line that I just painted? Nice and skinny using the exact same brush. And I'm gonna do a few more. So I'll do one here maybe. Wherever you want to have your little bundles of white flowers. And it's okay to overlap and layer, guys. That's what makes this painting look really fun and full. It's okay to go over some of the, the edges of other flowers that you have. That's gonna look really nice. And then I'll do maybe another one up here. I've only got 3 on this one. That's okay. Just kind of fill in any more of that cobalt you have open, guys, with some of these white ones. This is going to be the last element we're adding to our painting. Okay, so I've got my little lines there. I'm not going to clean my brush off. I just wipe it off a little. And I'm going to pick up some of my wicker white. And I'm going to do the same little smooshes that we did, just like our pink flowers, but I'm not going to press as hard. Remember before we pressed all the way down like a little stamp? I'm going to press down about halfway. And the difference is going to be that we're going to get a smaller dot. So it's just going to be the same shape. It's only going to be smaller though, because we're not pressing down as much. So I'm going to start on this one, and I'm going to kind of just focus around my stem, because of course the flowers should be growing out of the stem. So little dots here and there. Pick up more white as you need it. Start on either side. You can see I'm just not pressing down as hard as I did with the pink ones. And so I'm getting a smaller dot there. Do a couple more here and there, and I just focus right around that stem there, so it looks like a little stem of white flowers. And I'll do some more up here. And again, it's okay to overlap. It's going to look really nice. And I'm going to go over here with this one. Okay, so however many stems you add, you're going to want to go ahead and fill them all in with white flowers. I didn't really leave a ton of room, so I only did 3. You can do as many as you'd like. And now I'm going to pick up some of my sky mist and do just like we've been doing. And I'm going to go back in and add this second color just to give it a little bit more detail to my little white ones. I'm not going to add it to all of them, just here and there. You can add new ones if you want to with sky mist, totally up to you. Okay, so now I'll give everybody a chance to catch up before we add our final details. Alrighty. So now our final details, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my round brush. I cleaned it off. It's the same round brush you've been using, but I'm going to use the back of my brush. Instead of using the bristles, we're going to use the handle to add our last details. So I've got the end of my brush. I'm going to dip it in some of my wicker white, so it looks just like this. Not a ton of paint, just enough to cover the tip of the brush. And I'm going to add a few dots to the centers of my blue flowers just to give them a little more detail and to make them look a little more flowery. So just little bundles of dots. I'm just using like a little stamp. I'm not painting it. I'm just stamping the end of it to get those little fine dots. This is a really easy way to add details like this. I love painting with the end of my brush. I can always add tiny little details, which is a different look than with the bristles of your brush, which of course you could use as well. This is much easier. Just adding little dots into the centers of each of those for some final details. You guys, when you're finished with your painting, make sure to sign them. This is a beautiful work of art. I can't wait to see all of your guys' paintings. I don't think we've mentioned yet tonight, if you're not a member of our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, I guess we did talk about it because John mentioned the skill builders. Make sure to go on Facebook and join our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group. because I would love to see your paintings posted in there. So hashtag plaid crafts, wherever you post it, but I would love to see you post them in the group. It's an awesome community. I'm in that group, John's in that group, Andy Jones, Kirsten Jones, Kira, Emma, we are all parts of that group. We love seeing your artwork. We love sharing our artwork and getting to encourage you guys and be encouraged by you guys. So make sure to check that out. So is it time to announce next week's painting?
I was just going to say, do you have next week's? Because we
I
didn't
do
discuss
have
this
next
ahead of
week's painting.
time. We usually do.
Yeah. Yes, I do. So next week is a really fun one. It's going to be Andy Jones again. So if you've not had the privilege of learning from Andy Jones, make sure to tune in same time next week because he will be here in the studio teaching you how to paint golden shores. So look how pretty that is. So really unique painting. Isn't that beautiful?
Fun shape, yeah.
I know, it's really fun. It's a 4x12 canvas. So a really unique one, a really fun one. I know you're going to have a blast learning how to paint this from Andy. So again, golden shores, same time next week. We'll be here every Monday for the foreseeable future. We've also got lots of great classes during the week showing you how to do Mod Podge and fashion crafts and all kinds of different things. So make sure to check out our plaid crafts classes then. And any other announcements, John?
No, I don't.
Oh yeah, I do want to say, I keep seeing people posting. It's not next week. Thanks, guys. This is going to be the 12th. We are skipping a week. Thank you for saying that. Right. I almost forgot to mention. We're skipping 1 week for the holiday. Plaid's closed next Monday for 4th of July. So make sure that this is for the 12th. So this is our next paint night on July 12th with Andy Jones. So make sure to sign up for it. I think that's it.
I think that's everything.
So awesome. So the material list is, I see question popping up. The material list is posted on michaels.com now. So you can go check it out for sure.
That's exactly right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.